25% won't graduate high school. 50% will develop a substance abuse dependence. 70% of young women will become pregnant before the age of 21. And 3% of children who age out of the program will earn a college degree. These are the statistics of success for a child that goes into the foster care system in America. My name is Samaria Bjorkman. I'm 28 years old, married, and I will be graduating through brute force this upcoming week. I was taken from my mother when I was 7 years old. My newborn sister and I were separated within a year. And I wish I could say that my foster parents were kind and that they tried their best, but the reality is we were nothing more than a paycheck to them. I'd been taken from my mother for protection from her incredibly abusive husband, but I experienced just as much trauma and abuse within CPS as I did in my own home. I had my first anxiety attack when I was 11. The fear clawing up inside of me until I couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't do anything but sit there and rock back and forth. I was on a visit with my mom for spring break, and I will never forget the way she looked at me. All this guilt and shame stirring in her eyes. Her child was broken, and she believed it was her fault. I was 16 the first time I self-harmed, searching for some way to escape the pain that was very present in my muddled mind. I barely slept, the night terrors from my youth threatening to consume me every time I closed my eyes. But there was something that haunted me more than the past that I had grown up with. You know, my mom, by this point, she had escaped that abusive marriage. She started going back to school. She'd married a loving husband who had brought God back into our lives. And I had two beautiful little sisters that looked at me like I was a bucket of sunshine. My life should have been happy. But all I could think about was how I didn't want to be another statistic. The idea of failure was so prominent in my mind. And my teachers would see my test scores, or I'd turn in an essay, and they would look at me with shock and surprise. A lot of times, when you transfer to a new school and you have a history of being in the CPS system, that's in your file. Your teachers will know that. And so they'd get these papers from me, and they'd look up at me and go, "Kids like you don't usually make it this far. You're so smart. It's amazing." And I knew what they weren't saying. You should be an addict, a teenage pregnancy, a failure, dead. And that's what the enemy wanted. More than anything, he wanted me to kill myself. He plagued my mind with such thoughts day and night. And anytime I messed up, anytime I did something wrong, anytime that I, got a bad grade at school or lied to my parents or got in trouble, that temptation was always right there. You're a failure. That's all you'll ever be. But God. Now, I'm from the Southern Baptist Church, so let me say that again. But God. And then y'all say, amen. You see, college was my dream. I thought it would be my escape from every bad thing that had ever happened to me. And when my senior year came around and I got accepted to Vanguard, I was thrilled by the idea that I could leave the past behind. I know you guys are like, this ain't Vanguard. No, it is not. I had gotten baptized a few months earlier at a youth group that had centered its entire purpose around helping the lost, broken kids that nobody wanted. And I was one of them. And I was excited by the idea of going to a school where I could develop my faith. I had had a very, very difficult relationship with God throughout my teen years. And I believed that he existed, but I also fully believed that he did not care about me. And it wasn't until I was 17 that idea began to shift, and Vanguard was supposed to be this opportunity for me to really explore what life with Jesus looks like. And all I needed to be able to go to this school was to have my biological father sign my student loans, because 17-year-olds can't do that. For whatever reason, they don't want to give us thousands and thousands of dollars without an adult signature. My mom, who had done an amazing job restoring her life, did not have good credit yet. She had had to start with nothing when she left her husband. And so she said, "Call your dad, he'll sign your loans." I called him 16 times over the course of 3 months. The fall semester came and went. He He called me back in December. I would have done it, he said, if I had known. But I believed it was too late. I'd started working, I was paying rent, and if you know anything about rent in Orange County, it's like your firstborn child every month you have to give them, it's insane. And I was going through the motions of life, and to be completely honest, I was happy. I was working in ministry at an incredible church called The Crossing. I was thriving, I had friends, I had relationships, I lived 10 minutes from the beach. I mean, who needs a college degree, right? Like, it was the best life possible, or so I thought. And I put the dream of college away. I said, this dream is no longer for me. I'm gonna give it to my little sisters, and when it comes up, I will do everything I can to help prepare them. I got married. We moved to the middle of nowhere, Grass Valley. I got a job in youth ministry. I poured my heart and soul into serving God's kingdom. And at Thrive Unleashed in 2020, a youth conference in Bayside, God told me to go to college. And I argued because I'm bitter. I said, I don't want to do that. I have money and a career and things are stable and we're good and college is expensive. And I had all these reasons, but God's calling was clear. Go to college and go to college for me. And I thought, what is the point of this journey with God if we are not willing to step out in faith? So I listened. I was obedient, and every door opened. Jessup has been more than I could ever imagine. A literal dream come true years down the line. A declaration of God's faithfulness to his children. Something I thought was impossible, and yet here I am being honored on a stage for a dream I thought would never happen. And I don't have any hot tips, any magical ways for you to make it through this taxing journey called college. And it is taxing, exhausting. It stretches at you in ways you didn't know you could be pulled. But it is so beautiful. The friendships, the late nights in the practice rooms or prayer chapel, depending on your major. The trips to In-N-Out at 1 a.m. while blasting worship music. The silly moments where you laugh so hard that you cannot breathe. Enjoy it. Enjoy every single moment that is this gift you have all been given. Pile into a study room with classmates you've barely talked to so you can all pass an exam filled with information you're sure you've never heard before. Push, fight, crawl your way to the finish line if you have to, as long as you pass it. And when you feel like giving up, when you feel like your dreams are unattainable, remember Nehemiah and the wall. Jerusalem was rubble. Nothing was left but its people. And still, Nehemiah went to help rebuild the foundation. And when the enemy called to him, when they tried to distract him, and they tried to pull him away from his task, he said the same thing again and again. I am doing a great work. I cannot come down. Do your great work, no matter what the statistics say. The Lord your God declares with joy, hope, and great love that you are more than a number. Thank you.
All right, my name is Kenzie Carpenter. I'm a senior here at Jessup, graduating in a week. So excited. And I just want to give you guys a few fun facts about me. I'm a senior. I have been at Jessup for 3 years. I play volleyball at Jessup. I just finished my last semester in fall. I have 2 amazing parents, 1 older sister, and 2 little puppies. They're so cute. I'm an aviation major. There's a total of 40 of us, so we're, going strong. I love to be active, and I'm super competitive. If you ask anybody, it might be a downfall. I'm a campus ministries intern. I did social media my first year, and now I'm currently global outreach. And I went on a trip to East Africa last summer, and I'm going to Brazil this summer. Those are a few things about me, and I'm just going to start by telling a story. I came to Jessup as a transfer in the spring semester of 2021. I didn't know anybody here. I came to play volleyball, and it was a big step for me. I went to GCU my first semester and then decided I wanted to play volleyball, so I accepted a scholarship here. I moved here. I didn't know anybody, and it was really scary. I was in my dorm room. My parents had just dropped me off. I had no car, and nobody told me that the CAF was closed. It was a Sunday. So there's this thing I really struggle with, and it's called hangry. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. I get hangry, and it's a struggle if you ask any of my friends. So I was approaching this point of hangriness, and I just started praying, which sounds very cliche and dumb, but I was like, God, I just need some food right now. Like, I just need some food. I was like, I don't want to DoorDash, it's expensive, and I just was praying for food. And it sounds fake, but I hear a knock on my window. I was in Phillips. I hear a knock on my window, and a girl named Taylor McCush knocked on my window and was like, hey, we're going to get food, do you want to come? And I was like, wow, God, that is so cool, thank you. And so I was really scared because I was like, stranger danger. I don't know her. I'm like 19 years old. And I was like, you know what, God? I think that was an answered prayer. So I said yes, and I got in her car. And we went to Chick-fil-A. But guess what? It was Sunday. So it was closed. So we went to In-N-Out. And it was amazing. And now Taylor McCush is my best friend. So that one saying yes to God, first to come here, and then saying yes to get in a stranger's car that she knocked on my window, kind of weird, but it ended up being one of the biggest blessings in my life. I tell you this story to give you my message today. It's to say yes to God. Say yes to everything. Say yes to community. Say yes to the things that sound out of your comfort zone. I promise you that God will show up in a bigger way than you could ever imagine. I also want to say that being a Christian doesn't mean that college will be boring. It actually means that it will be so fulfilling in ways that you could never imagine. So Mary touched on this a lot, but God is so greater than our plans. When we place our trust in Him, He will exceed every single thing that we could have imagined. So I want to encourage you to say yes. This brings me to my next story. I am a global outreach intern, and I love global. Love Kayla. She's amazing. But I want to talk about global outreach in leadership. I went on a trip to East Africa last summer, and it was life-changing. I had never been out of the country, never been on a mission trip, so that was really, really scary for me, and I didn't know anybody on my team except for one person. When the opportunity came to join the team, I was praying and praying and praying, and I just keep hearing the Lord say, yes, you should go, yes, you should go. And I was like, you know what, if a girl can knock on my window, she becomes my best friend, I think I should say yes to going on a trip to serve you, God. So I said yes, and I met the most amazing people that I've ever met in my entire life. Saying yes to this opportunity was so scary, and I had no idea if I was going to be able to make it financially, if the dates were going to line up, if I was going to have any fun. I didn't know if the Lord was going to show up, but He did. He shows up time and time again, and He wouldn't be able to do that for us if we don't simply just say yes and submit to His plans for us. So I want to encourage you guys. I'm sure there's a lot of seniors in here, but regardless of your age, I'm only 21, and I have a lot to learn, but I know that saying yes to God will exceed everything that I could ever imagine. The last thing I want to talk about is found in Mark 12:30. This is a very well-known verse, but I hope I can bring something new to you guys from it. The verse says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." How many people have heard that verse before? Yes, lots of us. Me too. It wasn't until very recently that someone told me some things about this verse when it finally clicked in my brain and I understood what it actually meant to love God with all of those things. The first thing that I want to talk about is loving God with our heart and our soul. These two things reflect loving God through a relationship. Having a relationship with Jesus is probably the most important thing in my life. This was modeled to me by my parents from a very young age, and I'm so, so thankful for that. Prayer and reading the Bible are two things that make this possible. You can't become best friends with somebody by spending 1 hour with them on Sunday mornings and maybe going to church on a Thursday night once a month. You have to become best friends with someone by investing time with them, prayer, vulnerability, submitting yourself to them. Friendship is something that I found through Jesus that's gotten me through college and my life. The two things that I really want to talk about, I already mentioned them, but prayer is the first one I want to talk about. That is going to deepen your relationship with God, because you can't be friends with someone if you don't talk to them. And He wants to talk to you, I promise you that. And reading the Bible, it's such a gift that we have the Bible. It's the written word of God that we can lean into. And when we read that, we are literally getting wisdom from the creator of the universe. So that's the first thing, heart and soul. Those are the relationship part of your faith. The next thing I want to talk about is your mind. This is being able to defend your faith. This is theological defense, evidence, and just truly understanding what you believe. Jessup does an amazing job at equipping us to be able to defend our faith, but their beliefs cannot be our beliefs. We have to believe and know why we believe what we believe in order to defend it. Just recently, I took Christian perspective. It's amazing. And this has become super important to me. As the professor asked question after question, and I didn't have an answer for these things, I realized I've never asked myself why I believe about creation or what I believe about certain things in the Bible. And I wanted to be able to have an answer for these things as I step out of this Jessup University into a more secular world. I want to be able to defend my faith. And as someone who was raised in a Christian household, I've often just believed what I was told. But it is really, really fun to look out and to watch debates and to learn new things about your faith and to know it for yourself. And it's really, really encouraging that God encourages us to do that. We can use doubt and questions to not only deepen our faith, but to deepen our relationship with the Father. So that's the mind. And then the last thing I want to talk about, it says to love God with our strength. I interpret this as loving Him through our talents and our gifts. God has given each and every person in this room amazing talents and amazing gifts that we can use to glorify God. This can look like sports, choir, art, photography, music, anything, any talent, any gift. It can look like speaking, or the tech team is so amazing and they use their gifts to glorify God in every single way. These are our strengths that the Lord has equipped every single one of us with in order that we can in return glorify Him. So I want to encourage you guys to say yes to God. He will exceed all of your expectations. And I want to also say to love God with your heart and soul, with your mind, and with your strength. And I promise you that He will never come up short. Thank you, guys.